Hello, everyone. So hopefully you're not hearing that crazy song in the background. Hello, everyone. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm all good. That crazy song in the background. Hello, everyone. So I must say, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm all good. I have been away from the tech quite a bit. And as a result, tonight was definitely a challenge for me trying to get everything set up. But welcome to you all. In case anybody doesn't remember, I do these bi-monthly. So you'll only see me bi-monthly unless I pre-record something or there's something special I want to do, which I'm hoping that I find time for. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine Maldonado, and I'm the founder and curator of Sew Your Bag, and it's a subscription box service for beginner and aspiring bag makers. So these sew-alongs are meant to go over the project that was in the last box. And actually in March, the pattern was this one. It's the Zambarau. And each pattern is meant to be a skill builder. So over the course of the next 3 days, we will talk about different parts of the bag. So tonight is going to be about prepping. Primarily, there are pattern pieces as well as cutting the fabric. And if you're interested, I did put the pattern link in the show notes below. As I was printing it out, I realized that there's one correction I have to make, but it's nothing that really affects the pattern. And we're going to go through today, prepping, cutting of our pieces. I will cut and show you as much as you need to continue forward in your projects. What I will say to you is I used to cut everything and used to sit here and watch me cut everything and follow along. I've abbreviated it a little bit so that you're just cutting, and I will show you, I will discuss fusing and I'll discuss various things. And then on the second night or day 2, I will go over constructing the exterior. And that's really when we get into the nuts and bolts of everything. And we talk about, how this pattern is pulled together, what you need to do. And on day 3 is where we will do the lining and we'll put the entire bag together. So that's the flow or the series of events over the next 3 days. So it's about 2 hours or so. The last day, it's a little bit more because we're pulling everything together. But each night I will also give you homework. And if anybody's watching this on the replay, you can always fast forward and figure out how to get to the next part. You don't necessarily have to hang in there with the replay, just fast forward. And I will try to go back in after everything is recorded, and I will put timestamps in as well as captions. So let's get started. So the reason that this month's box, or the March box, was called the Zambarau is because it was meant to utilize purple hardware, which was inspired by the actual fabric, right? So this is the fabric. And with this fabric, I felt inspired to use purple hardware along with a different type of constructing a bag that we haven't done before. So let me go through all of the parts of the bag so that it's very clear for you what we're talking about. I do this as well throughout the 3 days so that you may find that I repeat myself, but different people jump in at different places, and I want to make sure that I cover everything. So this is an adjustable bag, so there will be an adjustable strap, and we will talk about that. To minimize the amount of actual ironing and sewing, in the kit there was cotton webbing, so we attached a piece of fabric and created a double-sided strap using cotton webbing. All of the hardware, by the way, is 1 inch. So just so that you know that, the rings, the slider are all 1 inch. I use number 3 and number 5 zipper tape in this pattern as well as a magnetic closure. So they're all purple. So in the front, we have this twist lock. To keep it simple, we are installing the twist lock, which is a different type than we did last month. Last month, it was a push together. This one is actually the most common type that you will find. And this twist lock actually uses a the twist part, and then the plate comes apart, and you have to screw the plate together. So it's a screw together type of plate. Inside, I kept it very simple, so feel free to come into your lining once we're working on it or once we're done, and add as many pockets as you would like. I tried to keep it simple because I want to make sure that it doesn't get too overwhelming for anybody who's a beginner. So in the inside, there is nothing, there's no pocket, but you can definitely add a slip pocket in there or a zipper pocket. If you go back to one of the patterns, even last month's pattern, a zipper pocket, you can add that, or another pattern that you may have on hand. We will be using, my bag tonight will be blue, so I'll be using blue hardware, but in the kit, there was purple zipper, purple pull, purple zipper end. And then what we're going to learn how to do is, if I turn the bag over to the back side, you will see that there is a pocket in the back, and that pocket is closed with a magnetic closure. So it's perfect for like keys or a cell phone. My cell phone is actually very tall and it fits in there very snugly. There's a zipper pocket, which is fully lined in there. And I used the rainbow. The kit came with a rainbow number 3 zipper pull, just for something a little bit different. We are using waterproof canvas for the bottom and the lining. So it will be cotton fabric for the exterior. In this case, it's Ankara fabric. And then we will use the waterproof canvas for the bottom, right, to try to keep your bottom clean, as well as for the lining, the flap, and the underside of our zipper. Okay. You're also going to need, and I used D-rings, but you can use square rings. The kit came with square or D-rings, but these are purple as well. And then you will need what I refer to as a tri-glide. You may know it as a slider. So that's all the purple hardware there is. I put as much as I could in, and apparently it was a hit. So that was kind of good. So let's get started. So I am going to tell you that there are pattern pieces. So I'm going to go through them very quickly with you all. First, let me show you my material that I'm using. And this is just the fabric pieces that I will be using. However, once again, if you got the kit, you'll see where the main fabric is and where the waterproof canvas. So I'm using waterproof canvas and a different color main fabric. So great. One thing I also want to mention is I will be switching cameras so that you can see in more detail exactly what I'm doing. So you will see me at the beginning and you will see me at the end of the lives. But while I'm talking and showing you things, you won't see me. And that's so that I'm hoping you'll focus on what I'm doing rather than looking at me do it. So let's switch up and take a look at our cutting mat. So this is the material that I'm using. It is a blue Ankara fabric. I am using black waterproof canvas, and you will be using DLH 2010, which is my own interfacing, and I will put the link, and you will also need some sew-in foam. So those are the pieces that you're going to need, along with, in this case, I'm using blue hardware, and the purple are all in my shop as well. So let's get our pattern out. And we're going to cut it. Before I do that, please hold. I actually left it in the other room. Okay, I'm back. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the pattern pieces, and some of them are already done. I've also given you in the pieces themselves. It is a full color. You can see it's color instructions. For the pattern pieces themselves, I've given you both the dimensions. I've given you both the dimensions of the pattern, and I've also given you the pieces that you will need for the foam. So those will be separate pieces, but on the pattern pieces, I've listed for you all of the dimensions. So if you want to just cut a square rectangular piece to know that it fits, you can do that as well. So for the flat portion of it, you will not be needing to put anything together. And I'm just crossing out some of my instructions here. You will not be needing any of the actual pieces to be stitched together, or like I say, to be sewn together. All right, so let's take a look. All right. So these are the pattern pieces. I was crossing out these little black pieces here, which have the dimensions. So on all of the pattern pieces, what you will see is here will be the dimensions that you need to cut out. So that's a dimension right there. And then it will tell you what you should be cutting out for that piece. So for example, on this piece, it's going to be waterproof canvas. When I look at the flat piece, it's going to be a piece of foam. And actually on the back of one of the pieces here, it'll tell you need to cut out waterproof canvas, and it'll tell you to cut out exterior fabric and DLH 2010 woven. It'll also tell you how much. So cut one. So that should make it easy. And then there are, on the back of this piece of paper, there are actually little cutout pieces if you want to label all of your pieces. So the only two pieces that you're going to need to attach are going to be the main bottom piece of your fabric, of your pattern. And the reason that we're doing that is because it didn't fit on the same page. In addition to that, I have marked it as A over here and A over here. And then I give you this overlay bottom piece A so that you know that you overlay one on the other. So what I will do is I will cut another piece of actually this on a blank piece of paper, just so that I can use the flap. So you're going to cut out this piece, and then we're going to attach it. So let me do that. Okay. So I'll start with cutting this piece. Let me get my scissors out. And you're going to cut to the outside of the dark line. So I'm cutting right to the outside of the line, not to the inside of the line. I usually keep like an old rotary cutter, especially with things that are straight edges. And I will use that for paper, to cut paper, because then I can use a ruler and the straight edge. And you can print this double-sided, which is what I did. However, the pattern pieces should be printed single-sided. So I'm just going to cut this out. Now in the pattern also, there is a cut list which has every piece, but there's also a cut diagram to help you maximize or minimize, I should say, the amount of waste on your exterior fabric, unless you're doing matching. So if you're trying to match something, there will be a little bit more waste. Okay. So that's one piece. And I will take another piece of paper and I will duplicate this on the back side of that piece of paper. So that's what I was actually looking for a few minutes ago. So we should end up at the end of it, we should have actually two pieces of about the same size. For the second piece that I need, I will need to cut off that little strip. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this. You would take that other piece. So for example, you would take this piece, you would cut it out, and then you would tape this right to that line so that the A's totally align. So I can fold this and show you. So for anybody who hasn't done this before. So when I cut it, it'll be on that line. And when I put it together, these two A's will match. And then when you cut it out, that will be your bottom. So that's going to be the bottom piece of your bag. And just to show you what that's going to be, it's going to be this piece right here. So I'm going to take my piece of paper that I have. I'm just going to tape it to that line just like that. You will get Scotch tape. You can use glue if you'd like. And when I say glue, I mean like something like this. I'm going to just take Scotch tape and tape them together. Now, I know you're going to say, well, how are you going to do this? Once I tape it together like that, I can then fold it in half and cut it. Because that's the center line, right? So I can now take this, fold this in half just like that along that line. Just like that. And then I can actually cut this out, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to cut this so then I'll have a full piece. And I'm just recycling a little bit here with paper that would normally go in the garbage. I really try to keep my, not to throw paper away. I try to use it in some way, whether it's for notes or, you know, if you get a couple of these pieces of paper, actually, I make a little notepad. I staple them together and then I make a little notepad. So whenever I have to jot down a note on my desk, I do that. All right, so hopefully you can get an idea and I'll show you what'll happen when I open it up. You won't have to do this, by the way, because you would not have duplicated the page on the back like I did. Okay. So now what happens is if I do this, you can see that I have a whole piece of paper. So just bear with me a second. I just want to make sure that people are able to add comments. I'm not sure if on Facebook, because I'm getting a warning that some areas will not be able to post, and I'm guessing it will be on Facebook, not YouTube. So I just want to double check that it's coming across. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is after I've cut this out, and you can see that it's all cut out, I'm going to do the same with my other pattern pieces, which would be for my flap. And they're going to be the foam for the flap, as well as, so this is going to be the foam. And the foam will be shorter than the actual main piece of the bag. And that was done intentionally. So I will cut it out so that you can see. So this is going to be the actual piece of the bag, the flap, and then the foam is going to be a little bit smaller. And that's because I want to leave room up here to eliminate the thickness, as well as, good evening, Facebook user. So it'll give me room at the top so I'm not having that thick seam, and it'll lay better. This will be a drop-in lining. So if anybody is curious where I'm going with this will be a drop-in lining. I normally, for drop-in linings, I do the ironing ahead of time. So I iron the seam allowance over, and then I do the drop-in line. It just makes it so much easier. I know some people will do it and they will tuck it. They will tuck it in at the end. They'll say, oh, you know, fold this over, you know, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, whatever. I iron it so I have a nice crisp end. Hey, Miss Nancy. How is Florida treating you? So we have a nice drop-in lining. I wasn't sure, Nancy, if you normally look at, oh, it's raining. Yeah, the rain is an interesting thing, isn't it? Every weekend I go, okay, I'm going to go into the garden and I'm going to do this. And every weekend it rains. And it rains on Saturday. And the reason I have a problem with that is they only pick up our yard waste once a week, which is on Monday. So I'm always afraid that and we have to put it in paper bags. So imagine the rain with the paper bags. Is that normal for you, Nancy, the rain this time of year? I know we're under our rain allotment. We're I think we're down by 1 point something inches that we should normally have. And the weather's wonky all over the place. I sincerely hope, Nancy, that they covered your roof. I had my roof done during believe it or not, during COVID. And that was very hard because I was working from home. But I'm guessing they covered it. So you shouldn't be getting rained on. You shouldn't be getting rained on. Or maybe tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow will be a nice sunny day for you. It is kind of distracting though, that hammering. The hammering and then the gun for the putting on the roof, laying roof. Oh, in June. Okay. That's interesting because normally it's hot here. We don't get much rain in June. We're the April part. All right, I'm almost done cutting this out. Okay. I thought I'd be able to cut it quicker. All right, so we have this flap. So this is what I was referring to when I said that the flap is smaller. So this is the flap, the foam for the flap. So this is the actual flap. And then if I take this and I lay it aligning the bottom, you can see that it's slightly smaller than this. And that's because I want this piece, when I sew it in, I'm only going to catch, this is going to be my fold over right here. So I want to make sure that this piece here doesn't have a lot of foam in it. So that's why I'm doing it like that. Okay, so we have our pieces and we can actually start cutting a couple of things. So to tell you about the construction of this bag, it is very interesting. So they covered, for those of you who are on YouTube, I don't know if you can see the Facebook comments. So the interesting thing is I can show you if somebody's commenting on Facebook what they said. Oh, wow. So that can't be fun. So they're like trying to do it real quick if they can get anything done, and then they're have to cover whatever they're working on. That's a bummer. So it's going to take, I hope it doesn't take longer. That much longer because of that. So let me tell you about the construction of the bag. The bag itself, here we go. It's going to be hard to show you. It'll be a little hard to show you. So the bag itself is really, the exterior is one piece. I know you're saying, how's that possible? So when we do this bottom piece will be here on the bottom. And what I do is you will be attaching the fabric to all of these legs, right? So we're going to attach a piece of fabric here, a piece of fabric here, a piece of fabric here, and a piece of fabric here. So kind of like I already did your box corner for you, right? So once we've attached the fabric to the ends, we're then going to come back and we're going to create the box corners. So there is no seam running across the bottom of the bag. And that's the way this is constructed. So it's one piece. I hope so too, because if they don't put more people, they're probably going to get backed up for like the next job and the next job. And you don't want to go through this. You want this to be done. Okay, so that's what we're going to do with this. Once again, this is going to be the waterproof canvas. What I will say to you is do not cut your foam. So the way that I've laid out the pattern as well is that you put all the pieces together, then you take all the pieces, lay it on top of your foam, and you can either draw around or and cut it out. I like to sew it all in one piece and then come back later and cut it out. But don't cut your foam. Wait till your piece is done. Then we can lay the whole thing on. We could actually see where we need to cut or trim, and then we attach the foam. And that way I know that my foam is actually the perfect size for my piece. So I'm going to grab my waterproof canvas, and you can do this in any order that you would like. Okay, so before I get the waterproof canvas, however, what I'm going to do is let me do a piece that uses interfacing so that you can see how the interfacing is done. You should be able to fuse this with a regular iron, so you don't need a steam press or anything. If you have one, of course, you can use it, but you don't need one. You can use a regular iron, and that's totally fine. So let's take a look. And I'm going to get this. Now we're going to cut. I like to cut my straps first. So we will need 2 pieces for the strap. And the straps are cut the full width or the length of from selvage to selvage. And then I cut the rest of the pieces. One of the reasons I'm using this particular piece of fabric is because I did cut the bag in such a way that I made sure that I got that motif on the front, and I don't want to drive anybody crazy through the process trying to get something, on the front. It's on Cara, you can cut it anyway. This I'm just going to cut anyway, and however it comes out is how it comes out. It'll be beautiful. So, I just want to be able to see everybody's comments as well. So if you're wondering what's happening on my side. Yes, you could. Okay, so this is a great question. Can you use vinyl for the bottom? Yes, you can use vinyl and you can use cork. You could probably even make the whole bag if you wanted to out of wax canvas, right? So if you wanted something a little bit more, I guess, rugged, you can do that. So you can make it. That's the nice thing about the bags that I design is that you can do, for the most part, you can use any of those materials and it would be a lovely bag. I I thought to actually do this one for the sew along in vinyl, but once again, I didn't want to throw anybody off. And if you're using vinyl, you can also come back and use vinyl for your strap. So you don't have to do this double-sided strap. You can create a vinyl strap if you want to do that as well. That's a great question. So I'm going to grab my ruler and my rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut this to get my straps. So there are measurements. I'm just going to cut 2 strips, but there are measurements in there where you cut them at different lengths, but I just cut 2 strips because I figured, hey, whatever's left over, I can use for like a little wristlet or key fob or something. So I'm just going to cut this just like that. And like I said, I am going to cut it the full length, selvage to selvage. The directions tell you to cut 2 pieces. My strap that I put on the bag, because it was a crossbody, is a 60-inch strap, but you can do anywhere between, I would say, 54 and 60. It depends on the height of the person and where the hip is and where you like the bag to fall. So all those things are, you can do. So the other thing I want to mention about this strap is that this is a 1-inch strap, but the way that I made it is I made it a little bit shorter. So I could actually get that little peak of black coming up out of the sides. You can do it if you wanted to cut this, you could cut it the full width so that it's all the way to the end, but I cut it a little bit shorter so I can get that little, that hint on either side. So that's what I'm going to do now. And I do a double fold. I will not be interfacing this, the cotton. I will not be interfacing it at all. You can if you want something a little bit stiffer, and if you're going to interface it, try using your scraps, right? Try getting rid of those scraps of interfacing that you may have, but you don't really have to. And the other thing you can do is don't do the interfacing the full width of this. Don't do it the full width. Do it whatever it ends up being folded in the middle. So you're only going to lay it down the middle. You can also lay a piece of waterproof canvas, or, and we have done this before, a piece of waterproof canvas down the middle. If you want more stability, and a piece of vinyl, if you have it, you can do that as well. Just be careful where they align. And that material gets added after you've constructed your straps. So don't try to do it, because we have to miter these together to get the length that we want. Hello, Miss Arnetta, welcome. I miss you guys so much. Like bi-monthly is it's kind of odd, because we used to meet every single month to do these so long. So I miss you guys. All right. So that's my straps. I'm then going to go back and I will cut my flap. Now, once again, your flap will tell you you need one piece of waterproof canvas, and then you need the exterior fabric and woven interface. I'm going to cut the flap next. Once again, in the directions, there are instructions on how to actually lay this out and cut it to not, waste too much material. So I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to cut the flap. Now the flap is only going to be one piece, because remember, the exterior is cotton and the underpiece is waterproof canvas. So I only need one piece of this for my flap. I don't need two. So I'm just going to line that up just like that. I'm going to stick some clips in it to hold it. And I'm putting this straight edge, which will make it easier. Depending on how you're cutting your fabric, there is no, I don't do like look at the stretch or anything like that. This is cotton. So if you want to turn it this way because there's a motif here you want to get, feel free to do that. I'm just, laying it this way. I'm not worrying about the stretch of the fabric, because I'm not going to wear the bag. I'm going to carry the bag, right? So I do that. I use my ruler as my straight edge, which actually helps me. And you can lay the ruler on your piece. The paper has a thickness. So usually what I do is I just hold it down and I sit it right against it. When you push it against it, it actually stops. And this is just regular photocopy paper, but it will stop because it hits something. You hear that? It hits an obstacle. So I just put it right there so it's on the straight end. I hold it down with my index and my thumb, and then I just cut it. Like I said before, there are measurements here. So if you just want to cut a rectangle and then come back and lay your piece, you can do that as well. So I'm just going to clip this side. And this side was against the straight edge that I cut for my strap, so I didn't have to worry about that. And then I can do the same thing here, right? So I can take this, hold this down. When it hits the paper, I can stop, and then I can just cut. All right. If you want, you can actually draw it and cut it, because I know some people like to do that. You can draw the pieces and then cut it. I'm just going to turn this around. Make sure it's flat and I don't have anything under there. And then I will cut this piece as well. All right, so I make sure it's totally flat. Grab my ruler and I'm going to cut it. You can lay the ruler on top. So I'm doing this on camera. But if I flipped it around this way, for example, put all my fabric over here, right? I could then take my ruler, lay it on top of my fabric just like this, along that straight edge, hold the paper down, and then I can cut the top. So there's any number of ways to do this. All right, so that's going to be my flap. If you want to, you have to cut around these curves. If you're challenged by the curves, what I can tell you, if you're challenged about doing like this with a rotary cutter, I use a rotary cutter. I know a lot of people use scissors, but I don't draw it. I just cut. If you want to, you can take little slices. So I'm not going to go around the corner. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to take a slice, just like that. And then I'm going to go to the next point, and I'm going to take a slice. So that's one way you can get around there. There are smaller rotary cutters that you can use as well, but that will make a curve good enough to be able to sit. So just take little slices and you'll get around that curve if you want to use a rotary cutter, but you're afraid that you will be wobbling. Okay. And then I'm just going to cut this piece off. And then I will have my exterior. So that's the exterior to my fabric. Like I said, if you got the kit, you got purple fabric. I want to do it this one in blue. So that's why I'm picking blue tonight. All right. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it to the side, and then we're going to continue on cutting our other pieces. So there will be, like I said, several pieces that you will need to cut. And I will now begin cutting the accent pieces for the top and the side. So I will refer to them as the front and the back. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, they're the same size. So this is the back, but it's the same size as the front, right? And then there will be the sides on either side. So they're really accent pieces. They're not really part of the main. This is the bottom, and then these are the other pieces. So I will cut those out as well. So I'm really just prepping you for tomorrow. And if you're going to join me tomorrow and you'd like to sew along, the only parts that you will need to have cut out and interfaced are going to be the exterior pieces of your fabric. And then tomorrow or the next day, you can cut out for the lining and the other pieces. But I will show you how to prepare them all. And I'm going to stick with this fabric. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut my front and my back. And the measurements are in there. It'll also tell you whether you're cutting exterior fabric, how much interfacing you need. Normally, if you're cutting cotton fabric, you will need some type of interfacing to stabilize it. So I'm just going to, fold it, but in the directions, I actually laid out totally flat so that you're cutting the pieces one at a time. So in the interest of time, and so I'm just going to cut this real quick here. And this is going to be the front and the back. All right. I will not be using this selvage on the bottom, so I won't be using this. When I cut this piece off on the selvage, I just cut to here. So I cut across the words. I don't cut where the words are because what's left when I cut here will be part of the seam allowance. So I don't worry about that. I just cut right on this first line that when it goes down and across. The rest of it gets caught up in the seam allowance, so I don't worry about that. And we're just going to cut this and make sure that I cut once, measure twice. And then because I actually cut those the way that I cut them, I just have to cut this part here and I'll have front and back. But like I said, in the directions, I have you laid totally flat and you are cutting them one at a time. Okay. So that's going to be the front and the back. All right. So I have my flat, my front and my back. And then the next thing I need to cut is the side, the two side pieces. So those are going to be a smaller. And so we're going to make sure that those pieces will be more narrow, I should say, than this. And I'm going to move these out of the way because I will cut them and not mean to. All right, so let's do the side. Exterior sides is what I'm cutting. Like I said, one thing I will say to you is if you're using any kind of directional fabric, make sure if you're cutting them 2 at a time, make sure that they're facing in the right direction. Okay, you don't have anything that's upside down. And look at the directions. The directions I give you are in width and height. Some pattern designers do height and width. So make sure you look at that to make sure that you're doing it in the right way. So I will just, in case you don't know it, I'm kind of a reckless bag maker. So sometimes I eyeball things and then I just say, okay, that's about right. But honestly, I do exactly the right measurements. It's just when if I was doing this by myself, I would definitely, you know, not randomly cut it. Okay, I think I have a little cat coming in. Oh, here she is. I'll try to keep her off the cutting board, but she doesn't like being alone. So hopefully she'll stay on the floor. All right. There we go. So I know about, and I'll show you the pieces once I'm done. So I'm telling you the pieces that I'm cutting and I'll show you them when I'm done. The next piece I will cut, will be the base because I want you to see exactly what it's going to look like. So I will go to my waterproof canvas. So I'm just going to cut this in half. It's not the exact measurement, by the way. So, and now I will trim it up. All right. So I'll cut the waterproof canvas, but let me give you an idea of where the direction, the direction we're actually going in. So this will be the waterproof canvas once I have it cut. These will be the side pieces, so they will get attached here, and they will get attached here. Okay. And then I will take my front and my back, which are these 2 pieces, and one will get attached at the top, and one will get attached at the bottom. I'll turn it upside down because I want that little symbol, I want it at the bottom. Okay, so that's what we will do. I'm going to cut this piece out now, and tomorrow when we construct the exterior, we will be attaching this bottom piece and add to these side pieces. So that's what it'll look like. It'll look sort of like a T. And then when we fold it up and bring it together, these sides will match up, and then we'll have the exterior of our bag. But before we do the exterior, we have to remember, in the process of doing the exterior, we have to remember, I know it seems simple, but there is a pocket here. So we're going to add that pocket and construct that pocket as well. So we want to make sure that before we actually bring it all together, that we attach this pocket into one of these seams. So we'll have to construct it, attach it, and add the magnet. So it may seem like it's, you're like, oh, that's all we have to do. We have to attach the pockets. I don't want to overlook that. And you will need to cut the pocket pieces as well as the waterproof canvas pieces for the inside as well. So this is waterproof canvas. All right. So I'll show you how to fuse this. I'll cut this bottom piece now, and then I'll explain to you what you'll need to have for tomorrow. But you should have a good sense of the direction you're going in, and so that you know all the pieces to cut. If you want to cut everything, you have all the information you need to cut and fuse everything by the time we're done. If you have any questions, please let me know. Hi. Sorry. Facebook user, hi. Okay. I'm thinking, is that Susan? I don't know who that is. Because this is when I get home. So I'm wondering who's getting home. Yeah, the blue is really nice. If I used the blue tonight because I wanted to use this blue hardware, which is really the same hardware that was in the box, just in blue. So I tend to make like 3 or 4 the same bag in the same fabric. So I thought maybe I'd switch it up and just use the blue hardware. Netta says, it's okay. No, she's not going to disconnect the internet. Actually, Anetta, I don't know if you've noticed, it's gotten so much better because I direct connect my cable to my laptop. So I'm running this whole line in here. But she's good. She just visited for a little while and she left. So I guess I'm not as exciting as I normally am. All right. So I'm going to use black. I was going to use blue waterproof canvas, but I decided I'm going to use black. I'm hoping you can see as I use it and I go through this lesson or this sew along. I was going to use blue because blue is easier to see. So for waterproof canvas, it has this rough selvage edge. You're going to cut that off. So I'm going to place my bottom piece right below. It doesn't matter if it's on the right side or the wrong side when you're cutting it out, but it does matter when you're sewing it. And for anybody who has not used waterproof canvas before, and I'll grab a piece over here so I can show you, it has a shiny side, which is right there. This side, which is shiny, that's the wrong side. I'm just going to fold this over. That's the right side. So the right side has like a fabricy texture, and they call it waterproof canvas. It's really, to me, it's water repellent because you're going to have seams in here. So if you spill something in your bag, it could get to the inside of your bag because you have little holes and little seams. But if you just dropped water or something here, you can wipe it off. So that's what waterproof canvas is. It's a nice, sturdy material. And when you're using this, you don't need to use interfacing. So that's why a lot of bag makers use it. This one happens to be, I think it's a 640 denier because they come different weights. And I think this one's 640 or 680. But it comes in so many different, a variety of colors. I know it looks blue on here, but it's really, this is the purple that was in the box. So it's the lighting in here, but it's really like an eggplant purple is what this piece is. So that's how you know the difference. You should not iron on this plastic side because it'll melt to your iron when it gets hot. You can iron on the fabric side. What I will say to you though is when you iron it, don't let your iron rest. Like you can iron it to get out wrinkles and things like that. As soon as you finish ironing on it, it may feel like it's a little floppy. Like, oh my goodness, I ruined it. It's floppy. As soon as it cools off, it'll get back rigid again. So that's what's nice about it. And like I said, it's one less piece of material that you have to interface. So it is, it can be more expensive than, some of the material you're using. But keep in mind, you're not using interface, so you're saving money there. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out. I'm on the wrong side. It doesn't really matter. You can draw a line going all the way around and then cut it out with the scissor. I am going to use a rotary cutter and my ruler. And I'm guessing it's under here somewhere. Okay. Once again, I cut off that selvage. So when I'm done, I won't have that selvage. You don't want that on here. And I'm just using my clip cup to hold everything down. If you have weights, they would be perfect for this. Okay. And then now that I've cut this, I can add a clip so that I could turn it around. And you only need to cut one of these. The other piece of waterproof canvas that you will use will be for the lining of your bag and the lining of your pocket. So it really doesn't use that much waterproof canvas. And by the way, all of the patterns that I write are meant for about 1 yard of fabric, 1 yard of interfacing, 1 yard of lining material, and that usually will make a bag. I think the only one that used a little bit more was the duffel bag. But you know, duffel bags are big, so that's what happens. Good evening. I don't know who's on Facebook, but thank you for coming. I use an application called StreamYard. So if you give them permission, I'll know who you are. Or if you just type, I'll know who you are. So Arnetta said she got some weights. I'd be interested to know, where did you get your weights? There's some weights I saw out there that I want to get. I'm wondering if it's the same place. The same. I was thinking of taking my scrap on Cara fabric and just making some weights, which is probably. But I saw some really nice ones out there. And you know, supporting small business owners is always a good thing. I love supporting small businesses, especially women. We don't get the credit we deserve. We're great multitaskers. We can get stuff done, task oriented. We don't get like focused on one thing. We do so many things. Even though we're doing one thing, there are so many things going on in our head at all times. And I try to cut the corners out with a scissor. Sometimes I use a rotary cutter if I know what the dimensions are. I will line up my ruler and cut it. But this way I know that I'm not going to overshoot that corner. Does anybody save their corner cutouts, especially if you're using them as a bag maker? They probably make great for like quilts. Because they're like usually 2x2 or 3x3 or some, but the little pieces, if you get them all together. I was thinking maybe you could throw them in a bag and make like a dog pillow or something. Cat pillow. Well, cats like soft things, but you can make it the underside of a pillow maybe. Hey, Cheryl. No, it's not showing up as you. I think what happens is the last time I took a look back, I didn't broadcast to Facebook. So I think, it sort of times out if you don't use it all the time. And this time I remembered I said Facebook. But welcome. Good to see you, Cheryl. Oh, what do you do with them? Oh, okay. What do you do with them? What do you do with your squares? I want to know. And you said Saya. It's a list she has on Amazon. She probably has her favorite things on Amazon. I'll have to go look. Okay. So here we go. So this is my bottom waterproof canvas piece. I'm going to turn it right side up. You see that wrinkle in there? I'm not worried about that because once again, you can iron this on the right side. But now that you see what my bottom is, I can put back in my sides. and my top and my bottom. And that's what it's going to look like. And then when I'm done, I'm going to have all this beautiful blue hardware. So all of that will be on there. It may be a little bit too blue for some people. It matches that blue, which is what made me think of to use it. But you can use, for this, you can use, if you have antique gold, light gold, matte black would be beautiful too. If you have that matte or electro black that Anne sells, that would be pretty on here as well. So this is how you're going to cut it out. This is the exterior. Make sure you cut out the pieces for this, your pocket pieces. So it should be 2 exterior, right? So it's front and back for the pocket and the lining piece. And we've already cut the straps. You just need the tabs. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm also going to cut out my flat piece because I want to make sure that I have it in time for tomorrow. Okay. And then we're going to interface a little bit and then we'll wrap it up. Quilts for waterproof and vinyl ones. Ah, great. Is that Nancy? So, yes. So I think it's Nancy. She uses the, if I'm wrong, correct me, the fabric ones for quilts. Yep, because they're like a good size. Waterproof canvas, little corner pieces. Genius. So these little pieces that I cut out of the corner get used. Yes, it's Nancy. Get used to reinforce the hardware. So when you have things with prongs like magnetic closures or like this twist lock or rivets even, using this piece of fabric actually helps because one thing about waterproof canvas is it doesn't have a stretch. There's no stretch. So the nice thing about it is if you use this, even if you use 1 or 2 layers of it, it doesn't have stretch. So therefore it's hard to pull your hardware out. Right? Because it doesn't rip easily either. You can't rip it because it has that plastic backing. Genius, Nancy. Okay. See, I don't have all the answers. That's why I do these lives to get some more answers. I have plenty of questions. I don't always have all the answers. Okay. So I'm going to cut my flap. So I'll do that as well. And this is the main flap. This is not the foam piece of flap. Okay, so just to be clear, this is the main piece. And you can either use your pattern piece or you can actually use, if you want to, your fabric that you cut out earlier, you can use this. So I'm going to use my pattern piece to do it. Just be careful if you're using your pattern piece, just be careful not to cut through your pattern piece. All right, so I'm going to cut this out very quickly. Once again, don't use that salvage, so make sure you cut that salvage piece off. And I'm just going to cut, once again, the pattern piece has itself has dimensions on it. So if you just want to cut a rectangle, you can do that and then lay this on here if it's easier for the clips. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm cutting it like that. So I cut it a little bit bigger. But you could cut the dimensions, which are written right here. And then you can always then come back and just clip the piece of your flap to your pattern piece, and they should line up. And then you can cut the curves. You can cut those curves off. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to iron on our interfacing. Once again, you can cut the foam. Do not cut the main body because, like I said, I'm going to lay, once I construct the exterior, I'm going to lay it on the big piece of foam. Because I have cut foam and cut it too small and then not have enough. I use Sew and Foam because it compresses nicely. It's actually by Annie, Soft and Stable. It compresses nicely and it allows your bag to stand up. And I have found, it's just my experience, that when I use the fusible kind, I used to use Pellon. Pellon is thicker, first of all, which is fine. But with cotton, it didn't always adhere evenly. So you'd get little air bubbles between the foam and the material. So I found Annie Soft and Stable, and that's what I've been using. And that's what I actually use in all the boxes as well. So when you get the foam inside the box, it is Annie Soft and Stable. Okay. So I have this. I have this. I have my bottom pieces. I'm going to leave you to cut your pocket pieces, but let's talk about fusing this a little bit. Very, very easy. I won't be using steam. I'll try not to use steam because it throws off the camera for some reason. I don't know why. But I'm going to take all of my cotton pieces, so not my waterproof canvas. I'm going to set those to the side, but my flap that I cut in my sides, and I'm going to fuse it with interfacing. Now, you can cut all the interfacing out according to directions. I block fuse, and block fusing means I just lay the pieces on my interface, lightly fuse them down, and then I come back later on and I cut them out. The other way you can do it is you can come in, and when you're cutting your fabric pieces, you can actually put your interfacing underneath. So just so that you all understand what I'm saying, sometimes I explain things, but if you see it, you know what I mean. So if I was cutting out, let's say, my flap, this is my interfacing, right? I could have taken my interfacing, laid my interfacing down. Then what I could have done is I could have taken the material. So let's say I didn't cut my flap yet. I could have taken my material that I was going to use to cut the flap, lay it on there, then cut the interfacing at the same time that I cut my flap, and then I'm cutting them at the same time. Some patterns will have you cut the interfacing smaller than the actual pattern piece. I don't do that because I don't find it has that much bulk to it. But if you're using like a Decoville Heavy or a Decoville Light, those do have a significant amount of thickness, so you may want to do that. But I tend to use, I think I only used one bag, actually two bags. One was where I used Decoville Heavy and Decoville Light, but I only used one bag, and that was the last bag that I made, which was the Macoba, the briefcase bag. And I did use the heavier version of the DLH. So, because I wanted a stiffer feel to the bag. But this is a woven interface, so it moves the same way that your fabric moves, and it's pretty light, so I don't cut it out of the seam allowance. I just do it the same way. So if you wanted to cut them at the same time, you could do that. What I will say to you is if you do that also, sometimes there's shrinkage to your fabric. So if your fabric shrinks, you may find that your interface is too big and you end up having to trim it down. So I do not pre-wash. I know some people do pre-wash their fabric. It's a bag. It's not a dress. So I think if it was a garment, I would definitely pre-wash. So I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to turn it wrong side down because I want to iron on the back to get these wrinkles out. And I iron everything. I iron everything to make sure that all the wrinkles are out. So when I iron it, it's as flat as possible. Right? There's nothing worse than you iron something and then you're trying to get the wrinkles out and you've ironed your wrinkles into your project. Just plugging in my iron. There we go. And I iron all the wrinkles out as best I can. I'm going to turn off my steam, but you can definitely use steam. And I'm going to iron this. So the other thing I do is to help it adhere to the interfacing better is I iron it and then I turn it over and lay it onto the interfacing because then it's warm, right? Your fabric is warm because you've ironed the wrinkles out. So it's warm to the touch. And then that helps it to sort of like pre-stick to your interfacing. So I just want to get this out of here. You can use a spray starch or you could use water as well. So for those of you who are wondering, yes, you can use both of those. We will not be interfacing the waterproof canvas. So I'm going to take my interfacing and I'm going to lay that bumpy side up. So there's a rough side. Can you hear that? And then there's a smooth side. All right. So it's bumpy side up, which is the side that has the little glue dots on it. You're going to take your material and you're going to lay that right side up. So it's wrong sides together, basically. The way that I block fuse is I lay it on the interfacing, take my iron, keep away from the glue. So you don't want to have to every 5 seconds clean your iron. And I will iron it so that it sticks a little bit. All right. And then once I've done that, I get to every place I could possibly get to. And then I'm going to come back and just cut it out and then do a really good iron for it. But I just wanted to, I don't know if you can see that it's sticking. I just want to get it on there. So once I have one piece, I then go back once again, make sure you got all your wrinkles out, wrong sides together. And I leave a little gap here about maybe an eighth or a quarter of an inch. And then I iron. And I don't worry about going over like this piece because it is raised a little bit. So I don't worry about that. I just want to get it in there. And then that one's sticking a little bit. And then I go back. So I continue to do that until I have all of my pieces fused. That's what block fusing is. And then I cut them all out. So then you could use a scissor. You can use a rotary cutter, however you want to do it. Like I said, just leave a little gap in there. Because if you're using a rotary cutter, you want to be able to get between the two pieces without having to worry about if you're going to cut one or the other. And you just continue in this way. You can also, and I think it's referred to as Frankenstein. Correct me if I'm wrong. But what you can also do is if you have scrap pieces of interface, I'm actually starting with a full yard. But I really try not to throw anything away. So if I had, like, let's say that 2-inch corner square piece, I would keep that 2-inch corner square piece and then use it and, like a puzzle piece it all together on the back of something. And then that way it's not going to waste. You can do that. And I find the best place to put it is on a pocket because nobody sees your interfacing on your pocket, right? So put it someplace where you're not going to see it. I try not to put it on the exterior of a bag or anywhere it's going to be seen, but definitely on an internal pocket. When you're lining a pocket, you can put it on that, right? Because what ends up happening is nobody sees it. And then you're not wasting, regular interfacing that you could use for a different project. So now I've sort of lightly fused it in, right? I can come back with my scissor if I wanted to. So I can do this and then cut all the pieces out. Or what you can do is what I'm going to do, which is get my rotary cutter and my ruler, line it up to the edge, and then just cut it out. And you can see that little gap makes such a difference. Right? I have that little piece of fabric, but it gives me enough room. So I try not to put it, and that I do throw away. I don't keep that. If anybody's wondering, no, I don't keep that. I throw that away. And then that's all I do. So I'm going to go to each piece and I'm going to cut it out. Now, once I've cut them all out, I will flip them over to the wrong side and I will iron them from the back. All right. I will iron all my pieces from the back so that I can actually go from end to end on all my pieces. So like I said, you can do them at the same time that you're doing. Yes, Arnetta. So this is the DLH 2010 that I sell. In the, I'll try to show you. In the Macoba, I gave you the heavy. So you got the heavy. So you know what the different thicknesses are. I know some people bought the sample pack, which has either the heavy or the light. And then some people bought the black, the white, heavy and light. So yeah, this is the one that I sell on my website. Thanks for asking. Hey, Della. Oh, it's interesting because it did say some places could not comment, and I didn't understand why. Let me see if it's something a setting on my side because I didn't do anything special, but I thought it would be Facebook that wouldn't be able to comment. Are you logged in? Did you log in? Because funny enough, I don't see any YouTube. All my comments are coming from Facebook. Let me see something. It is public. I don't know. It said, and I did get a warning that some places I would not, wouldn't people would not be able to comment, which is very interesting. I'm so sorry about that. I'm afraid to click on anything and I get disconnected. I will definitely have to check that out. Thanks for letting me know, Della. I apologize. Not that it's my fault, but I'll test it out for tomorrow night in case you join or somebody else joins so they can comment as well. I'm hoping you can see the comments from Facebook as I pop them up. That's very odd. Because I don't have them turned off. I just checked and they're not turned off, so I don't know. I don't know if it's Facebook being YouTube being YouTube. Because I am using a third-party tool, which is StreamYard, and I don't know if it's something to do with that. Yeah, that is weird. I wasn't hiding. Who found me? That's so funny. Who found me? Says I found you. Let me just check one thing. Yeah, I don't know, and I cannot disconnect. I can't disconnect because if I disconnect and reconnect, it gives me a totally different session. But I will definitely check it for tomorrow night because I want everybody to feel. I want anybody to feel that they're left out. But I'm glad you found me on Facebook. But I know that our group is private, so not everybody will be able to get in there, which I've been thinking about changing. I've been thinking about making it public. My only concern is I don't know how much noise, meaning how much noise not related to the traffic, to the box it will bring. By the way, if anybody wants to be an administrator for our group, I'm looking for an administrator. So what you said, Nancy, this is... Oh, okay. Let's try something. Let's try something, guys. Let's try something. Okay, bear with me. It's great. So I would think if something was made for kids, that they would be able to comment. But what I found is that on YouTube, if you say, and I keep forgetting, if you say that it's made for kids, it stops you from doing certain things. And I believe this is one of them. So let me see if perhaps I can change the setting on the video. Please hold. And let's see if it'll let me do it interim, like while it's broadcasting, if I can go in and change the settings, or if it'll tell me that I have to wait till it's done. So let's do this. And let's say it's not made for kids. Okay, and let's see how that works. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Annetta, that there are no trolls. So I turned off the for kids and so I made it not for, I said that it's not made for kids, which to me makes no sense. But maybe if you refresh and come back, you'll be able to comment. Yeah, no trolls. I think we had one during our live one time, and I was like, it stressed me out a little bit because, I then had to stop, go, please hold. Hey, Della. Thank you. Thank you so much. See, now I'm ready for tomorrow. I appreciate you, Della. I appreciate everybody. But I appreciate the fact that you brought that to my attention. So I want you guys to know it was me, not you. I'm over here doing the happy dance, Della. You can't see me, but I'm doing the happy dance. I just get so nervous with YouTube because I'm always afraid I'll click. When I first started broadcasting to YouTube, I used music from my Canva account. But my Canva account is my personal email. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. My Canva account was my personal email. So of course, YouTube said, nope, sorry, we're gonna ban you. You're in violation. But I wasn't. It's just that it needs whatever email address you use for YouTube. When you post, when it comes to music, has to be the same email address that is tied to where you're pulling the music from. So Canva was my personal email and YouTube was my business email. So I wasn't allowed to use the music, but I sent them proof and everything, but it was annoying because every time that happened, and then I said, okay, I don't want to get like permanently banned because they think I'm not getting the point. So, maybe they were just forgiving me once, but it wasn't carte blanche. And so I just stopped sending stuff across from Canva to my business account. So I'm always afraid. So now whenever I post anything, if it's a short or anything, I use the free music that YouTube allows you to have. No, see now, the worst thing you could say is don't look at this, right? It's like being on a jury and they say, ignore what you just heard. Like, how do you do that? So now I want to see what the email says. And I want to go and see it. I appreciate it. I was so concerned with getting the mic and the cameras because I hadn't done this in a while. So I took down my whole setup over here. And of course, when I tried to, get it to run again, I couldn't remember where the plugs were, because they go in a specific order. And I couldn't remember. Okay. So now I have all these pieces cut. Once again, you'll do the pockets for tomorrow night. And I'm going to iron from the reverse side. So I tack it down and then I cut it out. Yeah, it's a little bit longer. Some people say, oh, it takes so much longer. Yeah, it does. But it makes me happy. It brings me joy. So I turn it over to the reverse side just like this. And then you can see it's lifting here. And then I can actually go all in and I can iron it and steam it. So the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to hold your iron in place. And I found this true to be with like all interfacing directions. You hold it in a spot for about 30 seconds or so. Then you're supposed to move it to another spot and hold it for 30 seconds or so. And then move it to another spot and do the same thing. If you have a steam press, this goes a lot quicker, by the way. But you can do it with an iron. It does fuse very well, easily. I tend to do this. So it's not iron, it's, I guess, press, right? Because iron is moving it around. Pressing is just leave it in place. But you're going to check. You're going to check all your edges here to make sure they're all fused. And then you just sit them to the side and let them cool. So you would do that for all of the pieces that are cotton pieces. And you'll see it gives it a little bit of thickness, but not too much thickness. It is a little bit thicker than anybody who uses SF 101. And I'll be honest with you, I have it as backup, right? I have like a bolt of SF 101 in case, just in case I run out of the X thousands of yards that I have now. But you know, it's almost like 1.5 times SF 101. So you'd have to use like 2 sheets of that. And I can, you know, if you have some at home, put your hand under it and you'll see that it's thicker because you can almost see through SF 101. So, you know, it's what you like. It's what's available. Yeah. Steam press is so much faster, especially if you're making multiple. Like I was making some wallet. So the wallet, by the way, the wallet that you all got in the kit, I'm going to do a video. Ann said it's okay if I do a video. So I'm going to do a video. I'm just not deciding if I'm going to do it as a recorded video or a live video. But I love that wallet so much. I carried that wallet. I have them in vinyl. And I think for maybe when I first found that wallet, I carried the same wallet for 5 years. That's how much I love that wallet. And I carried it as like a clutch because it fits everything. I could put my cell phone in there and close it up. It was so nice. I think I have it. And I still have it. Yeah. I did it in vinyl. But I carried it for like, you can see how stuffed it is, for like 5 years. And it's got like stuff in there. It's got my checkbook fits in there. Everything fits in there. And I love this so much. But it's different than the Izzy wallet that I gave you a couple of boxes back. I gave you Izzy. Izzy just uses a magnet. So it's very low hardware. And so this is like one step up. And I thought it would go perfect with this bag because this is a crossbody bag, but it's also if you wanted to do like a day to night type of bag, like you go to work during the day, you go out during the day, and then you want something to carry as a clutch at night, that wallet is like perfect. Like I said, you could put your cell phone in there and, you know, I had I actually had 2 checkbooks in there when I used to carry checks. And so it was really, really nice to carry, and it's a nice size. So for that, I used my steam press because I made several of that wallet fairly recently. And so I used my steam press for that. So these are all the pieces that I have. I've pressed them all, right? I've double checked. Once again, the front, the back. These are my sides, my flap. I threw my straps over here somewhere. So I have my straps cut out. All I have to do is cut my lining. I have my bottom, my flap. You can cut the foam for the flap as well. Just don't cut it for the body. And these were my straps. And then I just need to cut the tabs, right? So the tabs The straps we'll do tomorrow because it just makes it easier for it to do it all at once. And then we'll construct the exterior. So that's what we will be working on tomorrow. I'm back. I told you, you'll see me at the beginning and you'll see me at the end. I really enjoyed this. I really miss this so much, guys. I miss talking to you all. I know some of you will text me offline, and I love that because I like to hear what everybody's up to and what they're doing. Um, I don't know if Cheryl's still on here. Um, if you are, Cheryl, I think you sent me something that you guys are doing in your town as an auction, a silent auction. Feel free to post that to the group if you want to post it. If anybody is interested in participating in the silent auction. Also, if any of you have anything that you're doing like the silent auction, or you're going to appear somewhere because you're selling your merchandise, please feel free to put that into the group. Not everybody can get to you, but it's good to know that you have things that you're trying to promote or sell. And our community, even though it's very small, they may know people who are interested, and they would let their friends and family know as well. So just look at it as a resource to market. If you have something, an event that you're doing, let us know in the group. So like I said, I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much for helping me with the YouTube debacle. Tomorrow I will be prepared. Tomorrow we will be sewing, which will be nice. Hey, creativity. I know who you are. How are you doing? So I'm seeing people from Instagram, which is very nice too. So tomorrow we will be putting the bag together, the exterior of the bag. Like I said, it is a relatively simple bag. However, you know me, I'm always trying to give you things so you can see different techniques and how to do things. And I also try to give you different hardware. So with all of this, at least you'll have a bag that your friends won't have. I know Nancy's building her collection over there in Florida. But I hope you like this bag, and I guess I'm gonna have to do a survey and see which bag you guys like the best. As I was looking through the website, I'm now on 2 pages worth of patterns, so I'll have to ask. Yes, Nancy is. Okay, so see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for helping me out tonight. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for contributing, Nancy, with what you do at your squares, and everybody else who had different ideas. That's what these lives are about. They're about me making these bags, but it's also about us building a community where we can share things. So if you want to share something, like a technique, like I know some people prompted me and said, hey, what about this? And what about that? Can I use vinyl? Can I use leather? Can I do this? That's what this community is about, as well as, me trying to get, help you guys out in making the bag. So I will see you tomorrow night. It's 7:00 EST time, exterior of the bag. I did most of the pieces tonight with you. You should be able to go off and do the rest. And then on the third night, we will go through the lining and putting it all together. And then we will be done. So thanks again. Have a wonderful evening and take care. Bye-bye.